Alright guys, Wes here, welcome back to the channel. So as you know, God of War is one of Sony's biggest franchises, and the latest game in the series, God of War Ragnarok, set a PlayStation record as the fastest selling first-party game the company had ever released. Following the release of God of War Ragnarok, there have been a ton of leaks and rumors surrounding the future of the series, and just the other day, a ton of news came out that seems to give us a better idea of when we'll get to take control of Kratos again and continue his story. Guys, we have a lot to talk about, so check the video chapters for easy viewing, and let's get into it. So in case you're completely out of the loop, God of War Ragnarok was meant to be the conclusion of the Norse timeline of this franchise, meaning God of War 6 is going to be another quote-unquote soft reboot, sending Kratos into a new world with a new cast of characters and a new lineup of enemies to dispose of. We don't know for certain what the next setting is going to be, although the two main frontrunners seem to be ancient Egypt or ancient Maya. Now there's a few other rumors suggesting that it could be feudal Japan, and while I do think that's awesome, I just don't see that one happening since Sony already has a few different M-rated action series in that setting, Ghost of Tsushima to be one of them, and then there's the newly released Rise of Ronin. But God of War 6 is already confirmed to be another quote-unquote reboot with a new setting and presumably new gameplay and combat mechanics, but Santa Monica Studios have declined to give a timeline on when to expect it, that is until this news. So the other day, the internet was set on fire by the fact that Santa Monica Studios had suddenly opened 24 new positions across the entire spectrum of game development. Some of the open positions include lead narrative animator, lead tools programmer, senior combat designer, senior technical producer, and many more. Now, it's not that strange for a Sony funded studio like Santa Monica to be hiring a bunch of new talent, but what is strange is that in the job description for these positions, it specifically says the candidate should be fluent in the combat design choices, systems, mechanics, and enemies of God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok, as they will be given preference in this hiring process, which heavily suggests that these 24 new positions are going to be doing something in the God of War universe. The job listing also says that the new hires will be working on an unannounced project, and there are also other lines in the requirements section that suggest this is going to be for God of War 6. For example, one of the job requirements reads, must be able to speak to and discuss in-depth hero combat systems, mechanics, and enemies in one or more third-person melee action RPGs. So why would that be a requirement if this secret project wasn't connected to God of War? Now, in addition to all of the positions that just opened up at Santa Monica Studios, there was a rehire that kind of slipped through the cracks, but I think it is very telling. So Glauco Longi was a lead character artist for both the 2018 God of War game and God of War Ragnarok, but a few years ago, he went to work with Striking Distance Studios on the Callisto Protocol, which, say what you want about that game, you can't deny it had amazing character designs. Now, after his time with Striking Distance Studios, he then started working with Unknown Worlds Entertainment on the next game in the Subnautica universe, but it was also recently confirmed that Glauco has recently rejoined Santa Monica Studios for an undisclosed project. Glauco's position over at Santa Monica currently is character supervisor, which is pretty interesting. So not only is Santa Monica Studios opening up 24 new development positions, but they also just brought back one of the lead character artists for both Norse God of War games. Coincidence? I think not. So Cory Barlog was the main mind behind the 2018 God of War game, and while he had a less active role in God of War Ragnarok, it was still his vision that brought the Norse version of God of War to life. But is he involved with God of War 6? It's honestly hard to tell. We know for sure that Cory is currently working on a brand new IP, presumably with a sci-fi setting, and it's seemingly been in the works at Santa Monica for a few years, and I'm pretty sure this has been Cory's project, or rather his concept, for a long time. So it's very likely that the new sci-fi game is going to be the next thing that Santa Monica releases, but since that team has already been kind of assembled and has been hard at work on it for a few years, it's most likely that these new hires are for an even newer project, which seems to suggest that they're for God of War 6 as opposed to anything else that could be going on at the studio. Cory Barlog may not be focused on God of War right now, but if his sci-fi project is starting to reach the end of development, it's very possible that the studio as a whole is getting ready to shift gears back to God of War, which could explain the 24 open positions that they're looking to fill. Now, another theory that's going around is that the new hires are actually for a God of War spin-off game, possibly starring Atreus. Now, I'm not sure how believable that is. Obviously, the developers previously stated that God of War Ragnarok was the last game in the Norse timeline, but they also said that there was no plans for DLC, and then we got God of War Valhalla, which was an absolute banger. Now, last year, a handful of positions opened up at Santa Monica Studios asking for people who were familiar with God of War Ragnarok's gameplay, which suggested that they were working on some kind of follow-up game. Now, since then, there was also a handful of leaks saying that Sony wants an Atreus spin-off game, similar to how they wanted a Miles Morales spin-off game after the success of the 2018 Spider-Man game by Insomniac. And while I may not have any experience in a AAA game development studio, I do want to say that I feel like these 24 positions are going to be for something other than a spin-off. if Sony ordered a spin-off game for God of War Ragnarok, I would think that they would have already kind of started development on it, possibly even already confirmed it, and they wouldn't just now be hiring for it. With how long game development takes these days, if Santa Monica Studios still hadn't started working on the alleged Atreus game, that means it wouldn't be out for another 2 to 3 years at the very minimum. I just don't think that's a timeline that Sony would be on board with, which is why I think these 24 new positions are for a full-size project, and given all the context, it really makes it seem like this is going to be for God of War 6. Now, another possibility is that Santa Monica is assembling their God of War 6 team for when Cory Barlog finishes his current project. With how instrumental Barlog was with creating the Norse God of War games and just kind of reviving the franchise entirely, I think it's very likely that both Sony and Santa Monica Studios want him to come back and direct the next God of War game. But with how busy he probably is right now, he's gonna have to finish up what he's currently focused on before that can happen, which means Santa Monica Studios is getting his God of War 6 team ready for when their leader is prepared to get back into the franchise. I'm sure Cory already has plenty of ideas of where they're gonna take the series next with the next installment. If you remember right, he told Eric Williams specific things that have to happen in Ragnarok for the story to kind of make sense for the next game. So if Sony wants to get God of War 6 done as quickly as possible without putting too much pressure on their main creative head, this could be a good way to do it. But again, this is just speculation on my part. I could be totally off base here, but regardless of how you want to look into things, Santa Monica Studios is definitely cooking something big up, regardless of whether or not Cory is involved with God of War 6, or if this entire hiring process was for Cory's next sci-fi game. Now, it could be that Santa Monica just big brained us, and we're like, let's make it seem like these job positions are for the next God of War game, when in reality that they're actually for the sci-fi game that's currently in development. But one thing is for certain, there's going to be at least 2 projects that are in the works right now over at Santa Monica, and that is Cory's new sci-fi game as well as God of War 6, but it could be that a third game is also in development in the form of a possible Atreus spinoff game. Now, there's one other possible explanation for all of these new hires, and that is for the God of War Ragnarok PC port. If you didn't know, God of War 2018 on PC was a wild success, and Sony has been really ramping up their PC games. For instance, Ghost of Tsushima is releasing on PC. There's Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West on PC. So like I said, it could be that these positions are specifically for God of War Ragnarok's PC port team, but I'm leaning towards that not being the case because the 2018 God of War game was ported over to PC by Jetpack Interactive, and I have a feeling that Jetpack is probably going to be doing the same thing for God of War Ragnarok. So yeah, that's why I think that these new developers are for either the sci-fi project or God of War 6 or both. Now the question is when are we going to finally see Santa Monica confirm their next game? With the studio seemingly developing both God of War Ragnarok with Eric Williams at the head and then Cory Barlog's next sci-fi game, what should we be expecting from Santa Monica next? My guess is that the sci-fi project should be getting close to the point where it can be revealed, as that game has been in production since after God of War 2018, which is why I think a reveal this year seems likely. According to insiders, PlayStation is set to be doing a big showcase sometime this year, or at least that's what's rumored. So if that ends up being the case, I think we could get a sneak peek this summer, likely at a PlayStation showcase in May or June. PlayStation has been relatively quiet, so hopefully they finally reveal some projects, because it's like they can't go every single year without giving us a little bit of a sneak peek at something. Now sure, I don't want it to be a situation where we get a game revealed and still not have it released, looking at you Metroid Prime 4, but I think there's a lot of PlayStation fans that just want something to look forward to. Like, we've got the PS5 and we've had some pretty solid releases this year, but there hasn't been anything really groundbreaking, so I think that's why PlayStation this summer needs to kind of pull out all the stops with their showcase, which the best way to do that is to either give us God of War news or have Cory Barlog out there revealing his next project. But what do you guys think about all this news? Are you excited for God of War 6? Do you think we're going to get an Atreus spinoff game? Were these new hires for Cory Barlog's secret sci-fi project, or were they for the God of War series? But yeah, guys, that's gonna wrap it up with this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed, subscribe with your notifications turned on so you're not missing out on any future gaming news and updates, specifically on God of War. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, this has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.